Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Williams, and you are listening to another episode of Retail Redeveloped. Now, we are going to take a global view on consumer safety, consumer health. I know these aren't the topics that I might have been excited about and jumping off the wall to talk about 6 months ago, because I wanted to talk about who was the sexiest new direct-to-consumer brand or who was moving and shaking in the real estate world. But I don't know if you guys have noticed, but things have changed a little bit in the retail landscape in the last few months. So I asked Nick Mercurio to come and join me today. He's Executive Vice President and Service Line Head of U.S. Channel Performance for a company called Ipsos. Now, why should you care about Ipsos? Why should you care about what Nick has to say today? I'm going to tell you. They're a global market research firm, and they have launched a Consumer Health and Safety Index, of which I've read, believe it or not, and of which I took a lot of value from. And I thought it would be really interesting to have an expert that is on the cutting edge of what is in people's heads, what are in consumers' heads right now, which is safety, health, cleanliness, all those buzzwords that we really care about. Nick, thank you so much for joining me today, and I really look forward to hearing you kind of expound on some of these topics.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here, Adam. It's great to be here. To your point, it's a super important, super timely topic that I don't think anyone saw coming, at least this quickly. And it's great to be here. I love the fact we're on video. We do a lot of research. I can tell you for sure that the majority of Americans right now are staying at home more often. They have gained more weight, on average between 10 and 20 pounds, and have gone months without haircuts. So it's a great time to have me on and on video. Really appreciate that. Really do.
Yeah, I feel like that was a personal dig at me right there, Nick. I thought we were going to keep this really, really fun and easy, but I feel like you went straight to the heart of my ridiculous fro that I have right now. If people are listening as opposed to watching, you're lucky, because I don't know what to do with this stuff. But Nick, let's do this before we dig into this kind of nerdy research that is at the heart of this conversation. Would you just tell everybody kind of who you are, why they should trust what Ipsos has to say, and a little bit about the why behind this consumer index and health and safety, and what you guys are doing and why people should tune in and hear what you guys have to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I work for Ipsos, global market research firm. We've been in business since 1975. We're top 3 in the world, do research in 90 countries. We've got 18,000 plus employees, publicly traded company out of Paris, France. And you'll see us all the time, household name nowadays here in the States and in Europe in major publications, particularly as it relates to our public polling and opinion business. Particularly now around election time, you'll see the Ipsos Reuters polls and USA Today, Fox News. So we've been doing this for a very long time, understanding what is important to consumers, markets, societies, brands, how they launch new products, how they improve their customer experience. And that's effectively what I do. So you mentioned it. I lead our channel performance business. I also run our Seattle office where I'm based. It's effectively a spinoff of our customer experience business. We do many things to help brands improve, their performance, their conversion across all of the channels that they serve customers, whether it be brick and mortar, digital, contact center. And I've personally been, working in the customer experience consulting and research space for over a decade, working with, Fortune 500 brands across technology, retail, restaurant, automotive, financial services to help, improve, optimize their customer experience. So that's a little bit about Ipsos. You asked about how we got into kind of the mystery shopper space and why we're doing this. So as a part, Ipsos runs the largest mystery shopping agency in the world by far. I'm a political science guy. I'm a business guy. Got an MBA from USC. I'm not necessarily a research person, but as I mentioned, I used to work for a very small boutique customer experience agency before customer experience was even a buzzword. People would ask what I do. I say I help improve customer experiences, and they were like, "What is that? What is CX?" And now that word's ubiquitous in business. For many brands, customer centricity is one of their core differentiators. Exceptional, consistent customer experiences. They're very difficult to replicate. They're very costly to implement and maintain. And those who do it right are seeing the benefits in share price and customer growth and all of that. So back in 2008 or so, I was hired on as a second employee within the CX research firm. We did customer surveys. We did customer intercepts, like receipt surveys and all of that. And we got a lot of customer feedback to help inform their CX strategy. And it was okay. It was good information. But, you always hear this, customers don't always know what they want. The feedback that we often got were from people who were highly, dissatisfied or satisfied. It wasn't necessarily representative of their customer base. The feedback itself was pretty shallow. And so, as these brands were going out and making promises to their customers, 2-day delivery, pizza delivered in an hour, hassle-free returns, short wait times, all of these things that are important to us as consumers when we pick a brand to do business with, they would go out and try to implement these promises, implement these strategies across, a national or a global retail footprint, just geographically dispersed, 10,000 locations with, staff who were making just above minimum wage. And they had no idea how they were actually doing with implementation and operationalizing these initiatives and these promises that they were making. So, you've probably seen the Undercover Boss show. And if you were a CEO and went out to your locations after rolling out a new initiative, you'd probably see execution was pretty inconsistent, sometimes abysmal. And so that's where mystery shopping comes in. We started doing a lot of this to help our customers understand the gap between the experience they intended to deliver and the one that they were actually delivering, ultimately giving them, objective sort of third-party view from the perspective of a customer, how they were doing with implementing those things. And real quickly, for those who aren't,
let me stop you there because you're touching on something that is very near and dear to my heart, and I want to get into the nuts and bolts of the actual report. But before we do that, I'd love to hear you discuss something that I care about. So when I think about the $10, the $15 an hour worker, the guy that's dropping the fries at McDonald's, or the guy that's greeting you and making sure that the shirt is the one that you're looking for, right? The frontline face of the business, right? Your company's got a $500 million market cap, but the person that I'm interacting with is making $15 an hour and doesn't know how they're going to pay the rent this month. How do the companies that consistently rank, and I don't want to ask you specific company names because I'm sure that's confidential, but how do the companies that consistently score high marks on that frontline worker, like the one that always jumps to mind with me? I'm from the South, right? Like I'm born and raised Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm calling you from uptown Charlotte right now. And ChickfilA is the one. Right? Like I can go into a ChickfilA on the side of the road in the middle of South Carolina, town of 150 people. And somehow that ChickfilA, the pretty little 18-year-old girl that's taken my order is happy that I'm there. She's happy, seems happy to be there. Doesn't make any sense. And I walk across the street to one of their competitors, and I don't mean like Zaxby, like a direct competitor, but pick one, Subway, McDonald's, and it's the same talent pool, right? They're not shipping these people in from Atlanta from some like home office where they're growing these people, right? These are the same talent pool, and yet the frontline worker for Chick-fil-A is completely different from every other place that I would go on that exit. So how, not to use them specifically, but what other companies can score that way? And how do you think they're able to foster that excitement, that like passion to be there and to provide customer service? Can you pick out any trends that the companies that do this well do?
Absolutely. It's not, believe it or not, it's not rocket science, but it is very difficult to implement consistently. And Chick-fil-A is a great example. I remember years ago, I learned that they train their frontline staff. They never say you're welcome. It's always my pleasure. And every Chick-fil-A that I've ever been to across the country, when I say thank you, they say my pleasure. And so how do they do that? And there's other brands that we can name many that do this really well and consistently, but many who don't, right? Couple key ingredients. First, you've got to have a strong vision and a strong leader at the top, typically in the CEO position, but if it's not in the CEO position, it's the CMO. Now you're seeing, chief experience officers who are driving a unified and consistent vision and strategy, which then leads to, and I think one of the most important components that you've touched on is this culture of customer experience and we're not just talking like it happens overnight, it's magic. This is a very systematic, intentional hiring process, screening process. Once you get employees on board, how you engage them, train them, develop them, make them feel a part of a broader mission. Even if you are just serving fast food, you get them to connect with the brand and understand the experience. It really does drive loyalty, satisfaction, likelihood to return, all of that. So you've got the leadership, the culture component of it. Yeah, but if you just do that, you're leaving it in the hands of your frontline workers to deliver on it consistently, which we know doesn't always happen. So you've got to have the systems, the measurement systems in place, and the technology systems to make sure that you can monitor this, track it, provide feedback to the frontline, to your store managers. That can come in the form of these customer surveys, definitely can come in the form of mystery shopping, training that's on demand. You see that the best brands are really, really investing in that through kind of e-learning platforms at the front line. So I would say it's a combination of, strategy, vision, leadership, culture, and these, technological and research systems that can help manage the performance.
That kind of does sound like rocket science, though. I mean, we're not talking about something that you're gonna implement tomorrow. This sounds like something that's either in your company's DNA and it permeates top down, or you're just playing games.
That's right. I mean, there's significant investments that are required to do this. You certainly can't turn it on overnight. You've got to walk before you can run. But the brands that get it right. You talked about
Disney.
ChickfilA. You talked about Disney. Disney's written books on how you put the guest
Former
first.
cast member.
Is that right?
Exposure. Former cast member. Lifeguard. Blizzard Beach. Loved it. Well, sorry to hijack your talk there, because I do want to get to that, but I couldn't let that go, because that's something that a lot of my friends and family, it's like a love-hate thing going out to restaurants and retail with me. One, I kind of know what I'm doing, right? So I'm a fun guy to have around to help order. But on the flip side, steps of service matter to me in a very meaningful way. And I can either be in the best mood ever after having great service, or it doesn't matter how good the food is. If the steps of service are wrong, it's hard for me to shake that. So that's a passion of mine. Sorry to hijack your.
We should. You sound like you would make a great mystery shopper. We should recruit.
That's what this is about, guys. Everybody's listening to me interview for a mystery shopping role. I'm getting out of commercial real estate. It's a little weird right now, so I'm going to become a full-time mystery shopper. So if you see me walk in, guys, heads up.
Listen, gig economy is a big thing right now, and we need people with a keen attention to detail. And to your point, most people don't really understand what mystery shoppers do, but they are these trained, experienced, recruited shoppers that we send in to visit retail locations. They role play an experience under kind of a predefined scenario. They have a set of criteria they're looking for with a sort of a scorecard of sorts. They fill that out after their visit. We do this thousands of times across different locations, geographies, different times of day, and we aggregate that data. We look for systemic breakdowns in that intended customer experience, that brand promise, and then we help them fix it. So it's a pretty cool gig, and that's what got us into this consumer health and safety index business. I was out just like you, and I mentioned this before we started recording, that my wife just gave birth to our second child. Very exciting. Interesting time to give birth during the COVID-19 pandemic. We certainly weren't having her go out and do the shopping trips. I was out visiting my grocery stores, visiting gas stations, going to the bank when necessary, and I was observing the focus and effort across certain brands as it related to health and safety, which was extremely important to me at the time and still is, was varying by not only by brand, but by industry, and even within brands. You'd go to some stores and they'd be having customers requirement to wait out in line. They had staff wearing masks and others did not. So this was a near and dear topic to me. And that's where we launched this Consumer Health and Safety Index, which is helping a number of large organizations navigate this complex.
Let's touch on that. What were a couple things that you found either very interesting from the findings, or maybe something surprising that you didn't see coming? I'd love for you to explain to people, what might have surprised you, somebody that's really into the numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will give you some data here and real quickly for context. What this is, it's a cross-industry health and safety benchmarking study, effectively, measuring how different retailers across 7 industries, we had about 45 brands in there, are doing with regard to keeping consumers safe. And it was a two-pronged approach. We did a consumer survey of 2,000 Americans first to understand, of all the things a brand can do around health and safety, what are most important to consumers? What's going to get them coming back to your stores faster and more frequently? And then second was the mystery shopping component, where we went out and then measured how those brands were doing relative to the things that were most important to consumers. Objectively, we did it 5,000 times across these 45 brands. Each brand had about 125 mystery shops. Really interesting stuff. So first, from the consumer study, trust is really, really low right now with retailers. And the trust and the lack thereof is really being driven around by how they're handling health and safety. Health and safety matters a lot. It's 4 times more important than good customer service. It's the number one factor when determining whether or not a consumer is going to visit your store. But at the same time, 25% of consumers, 1 in 4, are saying right now they don't trust any brand for their health and safety protocol. Now, grocery ranked the highest within that trust rating across the industries, but many industries, many brands were not trusted at all. Interestingly, customers feel like they are putting in more effort than brands right now to keep themselves safe. The number one thing you can do, have employees that are doing highly visible actions, and I'll get to what those are in a bit. But for the brands that get this right, there's an opportunity not only to grow market share, but also be able to charge a premium for products and services. A quarter of Americans say that they will pay at least 10% more. 5% actually said that they would pay as much as 25% more for brands that are getting health and safety right. The issue, and we found this out in the mystery shopping, is that American brands, major American brands right now, are not doing enough to keep consumers safe. And what they are doing, they're doing very inconsistently. 50% of the stores that we visited, staff, were not wearing gloves. 77%, they didn't provide any hand sanitizing, stations or hand washing solution inside the entrance. 64% of stores had no staff that were cleaning high traffic areas, carts, baskets, all of that, which is very important to consumers. 30% of stores didn't have any plexiglass at checkout, and close to 60 were not managing traffic in any way. They were just letting anyone come in, and despite occupancy limits and control. So there's a lot to be desired right now, and it's something that's very important to consumers, and brands just aren't doing enough.
So a couple things struck me there. An absolute lack of trust in retailers is a very scary thing to a person that is extremely passionate about retailers. Why is it, do you think, that people have more trust in Amazon, that they're somehow cleaning these boxes that are getting handled by 50 people on their way to the door, than actually going into a physical store? Like what is it about the psychology of a customer? Is it just because we've been trained that anybody that is within 6 feet of you is the potential enemy? Is it just like this psychological thing that's been implanted in everybody's brains right now? Like the thought that Amazon is somehow cleaner than, somebody whose entire livelihood is based on, 4 walls of a brick and mortar store seems a little backwards to me. And grocery also, you've got such a you talk about a germ factory. You've got an average of, a couple thousand people a day in and out of here, people touching every single thing that you're touching over and over. What is it about this? Help me get inside of some of these people's heads.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I've got a few hypotheses as to why. So first off, right now people are concerned with social distancing and not being around big crowds and other people. So despite the fact that, Amazon may be delivering something to your home where you didn't know it, where it came from, who touched it, there is a sentiment among consumers that is safer than going out, entering a store where there may be several hundred people, where the virus could be transmitted very easily. And so there's more of a comfort with that. We also know, that it's very hard for this virus to live on,
cardboard, whatever.
Yeah, to live on cardboard. One of our clients is the United States Postal Service as well. And, they were very concerned with this. Not unlike Amazon, took a number of steps, but there's been no reported cases from people contracting it in this manner in the U.S. So, that's one thing. The second thing, when you think about Amazon in particular, right? So when we look at who did well in the index, the number one performing brand out of the 45 was Whole Foods, owned by Amazon. And their focus on customer centricity, on execution. What is Amazon really? It's a logistics company that's very good with execution. So when they put something in place, like health and safety protocols, I think consumers trust that it's going to be executed and done better. Who else did a really good job? And I think this would surprise some people. Walmart came in fourth right after Whole Foods, Costco, and Trader Joe's. What is Walmart? A logistics company. Sam's was not far after. So, they've executed well. People have trust that they're going to do that. And I think it really is more about social distancing right now than it is anything else. Grocery did perform. Not only are they more trusted by consumers objectively on the index based on these 5,000 mystery shops, grocery performed head and shoulders above every other industry that we measured. And that includes restaurant, that includes, big box, home services, gas stations, banks. And why is that? I think this is, again, a hypothesis. It's not supported by data, but grocery is an essential retailer. They've been at it from the very beginning. They never shut down. They've had more time to refine these processes. And I think when we look at in general around food service and brands that sell food, whether it be grocery stores or big box retailers or restaurants, there is this inclination to know that this is a sensitive area. We need to have masks. We need to have gloves. And so they've taken it a bit more serious than other industries.
So your index found that 61% of consumers are delaying, if not just not doing brick and mortar retail because of this fear. Have you guys, and I'm a big believer that anybody that tells you they know what's going on right now is probably trying to sell you something. So I'm not expecting a crystal ball kind of answer, but has your research given you any indication of when you expect in-store shopping levels to start trending in the right direction? Is it like everybody's just like, oh, I'm waiting for a vaccine. I'm not going to go into the line of fire till there's a vaccine, even with the mortality rates proving to be insanely small. Is that what people are still waiting for? Like, don't get me wrong. I don't want my grandma to be hanging out at the local bar, trying to get COVID, but young, healthy people are still saying no thanks. And, how do you forecast when these people are going to feel comfortable going back?
Yeah, it is a very difficult question to answer, and there's no.
You're the guy with the data, man. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, no one's got no playbook for success, no crystal ball. But what I will say is this: right now, when we ask consumers, when they feel when they're going to go back to the sort of normal shopping habits, most are saying they're delaying shopping at least 30 days, some as much as 3 months after the economy reopens. Now we're already there. Each time we ask that question, though, it keeps getting longer and longer and longer. I would venture to say we're living in the new normal. It's going to be 18 to 24 months before we get past some of this, or until, to your point, we have a vaccine. But who knows when that will be? We still have many viruses out there where we don't have a vaccine for them. And so we look back to other, crisis situations. We are in an unprecedented situation, being that it's a global health emergency. But if you look back, for example, to the Great Recession in 2008, we have this survey. It's the Ipsos Affluent Survey, and we went out and asked people, how concerned were you with the economy during and then post-recession? 75% of Americans were very concerned a year after it started. 70% were still very concerned 2 years after, and 65% were still concerned 3 years after the crisis. So, what does this mean for brands? Given the current situation, you've got to embrace health and safety. We are living in the new normal. And if you want people to start showing back up, there are certain industries where shopping trips haven't dropped off as much, essential retailers, grocery, et cetera.
Home Depot, Lowe's, grocery.
Exactly. And, you see
Lululemon is taking over the world.
for good reason. And, but you see big upticks in, of course, new business models, curbside pickup, buy online, pickup in store, which, from an implementation standpoint, pretty impressive. One of our big e-commerce or electronics retailers literally sprung up this business model in 2 weeks. Clearly at a disadvantage to those brands that have been doing this for years. And unfortunately, when you go out and measure how they're doing from a mystery shop perspective, the execution's pretty bad. So people have got to adapt, obviously, but do so very quickly.
So let me ask you this: is there any insight that you guys have been able to have about masks in general? Like, are people willing to go on with their lives, right? Let's call it that, with having this extra, I don't want to call it a burden because that's unfair, because I want everything to stay open, right? So if I need to wear a mask, I'll wear a mask. If you want me to wear a scuba suit, as long as we can keep the economy open, I'm happy to do it. Not happy, but I'll do it. But I'll use one of my favorite restaurants as an example. We have this neighborhood restaurant called the Crunkleton. It's walking distance from my house, kick-ass food, best drinks in Charlotte. And it's just got the vibe, right? Like, you go in and you realize that you're going to spend 10 or 15 bucks for a drink. You realize that you're going to spend 20 bucks plus for an entree, but it's worth it because of that, that's something that they have it, right? It's special. It's cool. It's interesting. It's hard to replicate. So I for one, get a much different feeling when I'm in there and I can't understand what my, kick-ass server is saying to me because they've got a mask and everybody's wearing a mask and there's plexiglass hanging everywhere. It's a very different feeling. Not to say that I'm not going to go, because again, let's get back to normal. I'm all for that. But I'm also a very specific animal. Like, I'm a retail nerd. Like, retail is a part of my life. Restaurants are a part of my life. I'm deeply passionate about it. So I'm different. Is a consumer going to be willing to go and have a subpar experience, or are they just going to make burgers at the house, or just order more stuff on Amazon? Do you see? Is there anything in the data that would show you if consumers are willing to put up with this extra layer of a burden to go out and have the same experience they were having 6 months ago, albeit at a less cool, interesting kind of level?
Yeah, the data says that until we get past this, we are going to see decreased foot traffic, spend, frequency of visits inside of brick and mortar retail. No question about it. The whole face mask and face covering topic has become a highly political issue right now.
Will be until November, man. Nothing we can do about that, unfortunately.
I'm no public health expert, but all research, not even our research, CDC and everything else, points to masks reducing the risk of spreading the virus. It's kind of, I look at it like a seatbelt. Do I love wearing a seatbelt? No. Will a seatbelt ensure that I'm going to survive if I get into a car accident? No. But it certainly lowers the likelihood, and we've got federal laws mandating the use of seatbelts. So until people, we get past this, and until a broader society kind of takes the face mask situation seriously, we're not going to get through this. You look at Asian countries, right? It's been highly customary to wear face masks well before COVID-19. When you travel to Tokyo, and you go to places in China, Thailand, South Korea, they're far more ubiquitous. And when I go there, I'd ask, why are there so many people wearing masks? And people would say, look, it's customary. It is an expectation that if you are sick, you're going to wear it to protect others. It was extremely, selfish not to do so in those countries. And Of course, there's other issues like air pollution in China, and they've had the SARS epidemic, which has increased the frequency. But I don't see masks going away, even if it does diminish the experience, because let's be honest, it certainly does. But if people want, I think the takeaway, and this showed up in the research, the number one thing that brands can do right now around health and safety that will increase the likelihood of customers coming back to your store. It's the number one thing out of all the drivers, all the attributes we looked at, not just employees wearing masks. It's employees wearing masks that were provided or mandated by the company because they had a consistent look, feel, appearance. You look at Starbucks, if you go into one of their locations, everyone's got these kind of sleek, hip, black masks that, believe it or not, are also good with ventilation, because that's one of the main reasons why employees are not wearing them right now and why people complain is because they can't breathe. So Starbucks, had to manufacture, create one that's very breathable for their customers and employees, but still protect them. And, but I mean, that's the number one thing.
Wow. Well, Nick, you've already been extremely generous with your time. Before I want to hit you with some kind of knee-jerk, quick response kind of questions as we kind of run up against the clock. But before that, would you let everybody know, because there's a lot of people out there that are hungry for data, right? And hungry for opinions and hungry for leadership and everything else that is so important in a time like this. Explain how they can access the report, how they can learn more about what you guys do, how they can connect with you. I don't know if you like LinkedIn or email or just explain to everybody how they can learn more before I put you on the spot with some quick knee-jerk kind of questions.
Yeah, thank you. It's a highly important topic. We've got a lot of demand for this product. We ran wave one in late May, early June. Those results have been out, published. You've seen them. We're rerunning a second wave in July, knowing that consumer expectations are changing in this area, but also execution at the front line, especially as we've opened up, the economy is changing. And so we have a second wave coming out soon. Best way to find me is on LinkedIn or Twitter, Nick Mercurio, Nick Merc 831. You can find the Consumer Health and Safety Index simply by plugging that into Google, and you'll have a way to get access and find it. It's a really affordable product for those brands that are looking to differentiate in this area. So, and then of course you can get access to all of our Ipsos polling information and other data that we're publishing about the pandemic via our website, Ipsos.com.
That's all really, really good information and so important right now. Okay, so you ready for some quick questions?
Hit me.
What do you think are the lasting effects? We keep saying new normal. What do you think the lasting effects will be on consumers and then translated into brick and mortar retail?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt the look and feel is going to be very different for a long time. One of the other top things that brands could do, and no one likes it, but is install plexiglass at checkout and in other high traffic areas like restrooms. Managing the occupancy, the traffic flow of stores is highly, highly important. So you're going to see brands install new technology, customer counting, conversion, but also just managing that occupancy flow through this technology, no doubt. Another thing that we're seeing, contactless, and this is in the data, contactless checkout experience, payment, highly, highly important. Adoption rates of mobile payment in the U.S. historically have been very low, despite big brands, and, banks, tech companies, you name it, pushing for it in that space. We're seeing habits change right now as a result of the pandemic, social cues, psychological cues, breaking down barriers, people downloading apps they would not have downloaded, trying new things, trying new curbside pickup models. And so these are all going to be lasting effects. And I anticipate the adoption rate of contactless and mobile payments going up significantly after this.
So contactless payments makes so much sense to me. And you go to Europe and there's all sorts of contactless payment systems, and it's very slow to adopt here. Are there any other technologies that you see coming out of this? So everybody that I talk to about this topic says that we've seen a 3 to 5 year almost overnight acceleration on all of the online based retail trends that have been kind of slowly, not even slowly, were happening very quickly. And now it's all light speed. So what technologies do you think will come out above and beyond contactless payment because of this?
Yeah. So I, by the way, completely agree. You hear, Microsoft CEO Satya just came out and said recently in their shareholder meeting that they've seen 2 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months, which is just crazy. And I think it rings true. We're not seeing any new transformative technologies quite yet, but what we are seeing is the rapid adoption of digital technologies that have been around for many years but haven't been fully operationalized. So whether that be a buy online, pick up in store service and technology, of course, contactless payments, and go back to this. Automated traffic and occupancy counters that you will see now set up inside of stores to manage traffic. There's state, local regulations around how many people you can have in a store, and people are going to keep ordering from Amazon and having it show up on their doorstep until they feel like they can go somewhere and be safe. So that's going to be a huge technology installation, no doubt.
All right, last question, and I hate to ask it because you've already got me scared for over the last 45 minutes. Retail apocalypse. It's been a clickbait term for the last few years. Physical retail is dead. 3 months ago, I was the biggest detractor saying it's clickbait, right? Like retail's changing. There's a culling of weak retail. There's a culling of over retail. But I thought the retail apocalypse as a term was total bullshit. Now it's scary. It's scary out there for my good friends and colleagues that are out here on the front lines doing this business. What springs to your head when you hear that term, and opine on that term for me?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a ton out there to debunk this idea of a retail apocalypse pre-COVID, right? And you mentioned it. It's not so much an apocalypse as it's been a transformation, massive footprint reduction for some brands. They closed stores and moved to more of an experience center. You saw a lot of that with Best Buy. But even in that, for some brands in some industries, their retail footprint has been growing. You've got data out there from 2007 to 2017, massive increase in the number of dollar stores and doors that have opened, convenience and gas stores, drug stores, liquor stores. I mean, the ones that
had this wave of direct to consumer that was going to happen. Like Warby Parker was not the only group that was born online, DTC, and was going to start opening stores for the halo effect. That data was there.
Absolutely. I mean, look, Amazon is growing their retail footprint, not shrinking it. And why is that, right? And what is going to help people stay open? And I think we are in a temporary, whether it's 18 months, 24 months, 12 months, let's be optimistic here. I don't mean to be doom and gloom. We are going to get a vaccine, or we are going to have treatments that are going to make people's comfort level, therapeutic treatments go down, the death rate go down. And people, if we've learned one thing from this pandemic, it's that people are highly social beings, right? They need human to human and physical contact and interaction. The psychological effects of this pandemic have been just as bad, if not worse, than the health effects. So the retailers that are going to succeed are going to solve customer pain points. They are going to be there for convenience. They're going to be there for experience. They're going to be there for knowledge. When you think about, even though grocery online shopping is going up right now, there's still that like sort of hedonic, pleasurable experience people get when you go to a grocery store and you pick out fresh meat and produce. When you think about complex purchases, some in the consumer electronic space, everyone said Best Buy was going to be the next Circuit City and die, and they're still doing well. They've a number of reasons why. They've reduced their footprint. They've partnered with Amazon, but they're an experience center. They're a knowledge center. People are going and learning about things online and through different channels, but they're still going into the store to be educated. And they may not hear your
$2,000 Sonos system before you just click buy. I totally get that.
That's exactly right. So you're going to have to solve. There's this EST strategy that a number of people have out there, right? Like, I'm going to be the fastest. I'm going to be the cheapest. I think you're going to see brands right now play in the safest space, and that's going to get people in. And once you have them, if you deliver, you're going to keep them for a long time. So interesting time, but certainly a light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, Nick, let's do this. I've really enjoyed this, probably more so than I even thought I would as I was reading the study, because I really like the kind of what's between the lines of the study as much as the talking points. Let's do this. I really want to do this again when the next wave comes out, because I'm fascinated to know how consumers are acting, 60 days ago today and 60 days from now. So I would love to pick this back up and make it a two-parter. Thank you again for taking time, for sharing your knowledge, for sharing your company's knowledge. It's not every day where you're able to tap into the knowledge from, half the countries on the planet in 30 minutes. So I just want to take a second and acknowledge you and say thank you for sharing all that data with us. And hopefully we can do it again, because I'd love to hear a little bit more.
Thanks, Adam. Absolute pleasure for your listeners. Thank you for having us. Thank you for the time, and super important topic. So, stay safe, stay healthy, and be well. Thanks again.
Awesome. Nick Mercurio, everybody with Ipsos. Look them up, connect with them, and you guys can learn a lot, especially the people in the front lines. Thank you again. Once again, Adam Williams with Retail Redeveloped.